So one day, Venerable Ananda, a great teacher, the Supreme Buddha's attendant for 25 years, okay, dressed, took his bowl, and went to the house of the female lay follower called or named Migasala. Okay. So when he went there, he sat down on the seat prepared for him, and the female lay disciple Migasala, so this Migasala Upasika, she approached Venerable Ananda, worshipped him, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side and asked him a question. And the question that was asked is, Migasala Upasika asked from Venerable Ananda, Bante Ananda, so that is Venerable Ananda, just how should this teaching of the Blessed One be understood? Okay, where one who is celibate and one who is not celibate both have exactly the same destination in their future life. Okay. And so she says, so she explains this question further and she says, my father, Purana. So Migasala's father's name is Purana. So she says, my father, Purana, he was celibate. Okay, so after some time, after getting married, after some time, he lived a very holy life, a celibate life, living apart from his wife, abstaining from sexual intercourse. Okay, so the common person's practice. So her father, Purana, he lived a celibate life. And when he passed away, the Blessed One declared that he attained the state of a once returner. So once returner means a Sakadagami disciple. Okay, so there are, the Supreme Buddha teaches, there are 4 fruits a person can attain in this dispensation. And the first one is the fruit of Sotapanna, which is being a stream entrant. The second is the fruit of once returner, which is Sakadagami. The third is the fruit of Anagami, which is a non-returner. So that means you don't return back to this world. And the fourth is Arahantship. Okay. So those are the 4 attainments a person can gain in this dispensation. So she says, my father Purana, he was celibate. He led a celibate life, and when he died, the Supreme Buddha declared that he had attained the state of a once returner, and that he was reborn in the Tusita heaven. Okay, so where was the father reborn? He was reborn in the Tusita heaven. And then she says, my uncle. So uncle means Purana's brother. My uncle Isidatta, he did not lead a celibate life. Okay, he lived a contented married life. And when he died, the Blessed One also declared that he attained the state of a once returner, and he was also reborn in the Tusita heaven. Okay, so both of them, they were reborn in the Tusita heaven. So she's asking, how is it that a person who was highly virtuous, that is, a person who developed a celibate life, okay, a holy life, how is it that both of them were reborn in the same destination? How can that be? Okay, so now she is looking from the outside. She's looking from the outside, and from the outside, it seems like one person is better than the other, right? So the person who led a celibate life is better than the person who did not. So she's asking, how is it that both of them were reborn in the same place? And when Venerable Ananda was asked this, Venerable Ananda answered like this. He said, well, sister, if the Supreme Buddha said it like that, then it's just so and not otherwise. Okay, so Venerable Ananda said, if the Supreme Buddha declared it in that way, then that is how it is. That is exactly how it is. You don't have to doubt it. Okay, so now she is doubting, how can this happen? Okay, and so Venerable Ananda didn't go to say anything else, but rather Venerable Ananda returned back from the alms round and went to the Supreme Buddha, and he told the Supreme Buddha what happened. And they told the Supreme Buddha about the conversation that he had with this Migasala Upasika, about the fact that she's, criticizing. She's criticizing the fact that the Supreme Buddha has declared that a celibate person and a person who is not celibate has been reborn in the same destination. Okay. So when Venerable Ananda said this, Venerable Ananda says, when Venerable Ananda said this, our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha says, the Supreme Buddha says, who indeed is the female lay follower Migasala, a foolish, incompetent woman with 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 a very immature intellect, and who are those who have the knowledge of seeing the internal faculties of a person. So what the Supreme Buddha says, how can you compare the how can you compare a foolish, incompetent woman with a great person who has the ability to see a person's inner faculty? That is a Buddha. Okay, our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, has a very special knowledge, and that is called Purisa Puggala Jnana or Indriya Paro Pariyatta Jnana. And that is, the Supreme Buddha has the ability to see how a person's inner faculties have been developed. Now, I have taught this about these 5 inner faculties in a previous sutta, in the Apana Sutta. That is, the Supreme Buddha has the ability to see how these 5 faculties have been established in a person. Okay, so what are those 5 faculties? Shraddha, Viriya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. Shraddha means confidence in the Buddha. Shraddha, Virya. Virya means effort. Okay, third one is Shraddha, Virya, Sati, mindfulness. Fourth one is Samadhi, which is concentration. And the 5th is Panya, wisdom. Okay, so when the Supreme Buddha sees a person, the Supreme Buddha has the ability to understand how superior or inferior this person's faculties are. Okay. Now, for example, when our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, first became enlightened, the Supreme Buddha didn't feel like teaching the Dhamma, right? And when Brahma Sahampati came and invited the Supreme Buddha looked at this world. It said that the Supreme Buddha saw this world like a lotus pond. Okay, there are some lotuses that are deep down. Okay, although the sunlight rise, they don't bloom. But there are some lotuses that are a little bit up, and if they come up from the surface of the water, they are mature enough that they will bloom. Right? There are some lotuses that are already come out of the surface of water, and once the sunlight rises, and hits on those flowers, they will quickly bloom. So in that way, the Supreme Buddha saw that there are some people in this world who have very highly developed faculties, highly developed faculties, which are these five faculties: Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. So if a person who has highly developed faculties gets to listen to the Dhamma, then they quickly understand the Dhamma and they become arahants. So those who became arahants during the Supreme Buddha's time, they were those who had developed these five faculties within them. So this is not something that you can see from outside. Only a Buddha, only a Tathagata has the ability to see this. Nobody else. Okay, so that's why the Supreme Buddha is. So if the Supreme Buddha says something, declares something, the Supreme Buddha declares what he does by seeing the reality through these knowledges. So that's why a normal person makes a judgment by simply looking from the outside, but they don't see the inside, right? So the Supreme Buddha at this moment, the Supreme Buddha teaches Ananda. There are these 6 types of persons found existing in this world. Okay, what 6? The Supreme Buddha teaches now here there are 2 types of people. The first one is he's very pleasant to be with. He's very soft-hearted, he's very mild, very pleasant to be with for his fellow monks. Okay, he's a good companion. So he's very friendly, he's easy to be with, he's very helpful to others, easygoing. Okay, so there's such a person, there's such a monk, okay, with whom his fellow monks gladly dwell. So his fellow monks can happily live with that monk. Right? There are certain people like that. They're very easygoing, easy to interact with, very friendly. Right? So the Supreme Buddha teaches there's such a monk. However, he has not listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. Okay? And he is not well versed in the Dhamma. He doesn't have a good Dhamma knowledge. And he has not gotten a clear view of the Dhamma. Okay? And he does not attain temporary liberation. Temporary liberation means now when you're practicing the Dhamma or when you're listening to the Dhamma, sometimes at the moment you're listening to the Dhamma, you're so focused. You're so focused, you're so concentrated. And when you understand what you're listening, when you understand what you're listening to, you feel very happy. That's called a temporary liberation. Okay. So this is something that can be experienced by those who practice the Dhamma. You get extreme happiness. So at that moment, you're free from all of those stresses in life. You're free from all of those worries in life, right? At that moment, temporarily, you're liberated. So this is what the Supreme Buddha is saying here. Yeah, so there's a monk. Although he's very easy to be with, he's very easygoing, he's very friendly, he has not listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. He doesn't have a good Dhamma knowledge and he doesn't experience this temporary liberation. With the breakup of the body after death, he heads for deterioration, not for distinction. He is one going to deterioration, not to distinction. Okay. Now, the second person is there's also another person. He's from the outside, he's just like that first person. That is, he's very easygoing, he's very friendly to be with, he's very mild, pleasant to be with. So his fellow monks are very happy to be with that person, very glad to be with that person. He helps others. Okay. However, this monk, he has listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. Okay. And he has a good Dhamma knowledge. Bahusuto. Bahusuto means he has listened to the Dhamma a lot and he has a very good collection of Dhamma in his mind. And he has a clear view of the Dhamma. He has a very clear understanding of the Dhamma as well. Okay. And he also attains temporary liberation. That means when he's practicing the Dhamma, when he's listening to the Dhamma, he gains that joy. He gains that calmness, that serenity from time to time. That's called temporary liberation. Okay. So the Supreme teaches, with the breakup of the body after death, he heads for distinction, not for deterioration. He is one going to distinction, not to deterioration. So these two people from the outside, now they look the same, right? From the outside, they seem exactly the same. However, the Supreme Buddha teaches, one person goes up and the other person goes down. Now, how did that happen? Right? Now, this is why I say you can't judge a person from by looking outside. From the outside, you can't judge. Right? So both of these monks, they are living in a monastery, right? They get the opportunity to practice the Dhamma, they all get the opportunity to listen to the Dhamma, but the Supreme Buddha teaches one person has not taken what needs to be taken by listening. So now through this you can understand a very good point, and that is when a person listens to now at this moment, all of you are listening to the Dhamma. Okay. So when you listen to the Dhamma, okay, if you understand what you're being taught, okay, and if you understand what you're taught, then you start to practice that Dhamma. That's what it's meant by taking what needs to be taken to listening. Right? If you're just listening, then you listen for half hour, you listen for 1 hour, and at the end of that session, you have not taken anything in. So it's just a mere listening. However, when a person listens to the Dhamma, if he understands, if that meaning goes inside of him, if he retains that Dhamma, if he has a good Dhamma knowledge and he starts to practice that Dhamma, then you have taken what needs to be taken through listening. That is the person who becomes well versed in the Dhamma. So he has a very good Dhamma knowledge and he has a very clear understanding of the Dhamma. So if you ask him a question, he can easily answer because he has a very clear understanding. He's not confused in the Dhamma. Okay? So this is something, you can't see these things happening from the outside. Okay? You can see a person listening to the Dhamma, but that's the only thing. Okay, only a Buddha, only a Supreme Buddha can see beyond that, whether this person has taken what needs to be taken by listening to Dhamma. Okay, so that's the difference between a Buddha teaching the Dhamma and a disciple teaching the Dhamma. When a Buddha teaches the Dhamma, the Supreme Buddha sees everything, how a person is taking in this Dhamma. And therefore, the Supreme Buddha teaches exactly to the point so that that person quickly realizes it. But for a disciple can only teach generally. If a person takes it in, then it's for his benefit, but a disciple can't do anything beyond. Okay, but Tathagata teaches the Dhamma by seeing how these faculties are developing within a person, and therefore the Subhipanda can teach to the exact point of realization. That is the difference between a Buddha teaching and a disciple teaching. Okay. So that's why when a person becomes fortunate to listen to the Dhamma from a Supreme Buddha himself, they quickly realize the Dhamma. Okay? So the Supreme Buddha teaches here, so from the outside, although these two people seems the same, from the inside, they're different. Right? So the Supreme Buddha teaches that person who has listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma, and that person who has developed a good Dhamma knowledge and has developed a clear understanding of the Dhamma, and that person who experiences temporary liberation, that person will definitely develop higher. So upon death, that person will go higher in relation to the other person who did not develop those things. Okay. So this remember the teachers from the outside. Now you'll wonder, they both seem the same. They were exactly the same. So how is it that one person goes up and the other person goes down, right? From to the outsider, they only see how that person behaves, how that person is friendly, how that person is helpful. From the outside, the normal person cannot see how that person has developed internally. So therefore, the Surya teaches Ananda, those who are judgmental will pass such judgments on them, saying, this one has the same quality as the other. So why should one be inferior and the other be superior? Right? Ananda, that judgment of theirs will indeed lead to their harm and suffering for a long time. Therefore, Ananda, don't go to judge people. Okay? So now judging people is something we are so used to. From the outside, we look at how people behave, how they speak, how they interact, and we quickly judge people. But the Supreme Buddha teaches in this sutta, don't go to judge people. Why? Because we don't have the ability to see their inner self. Okay? Their inner development is what takes them higher or lower, right? Supreme Buddha teaches Ananda, the person who was mild, pleasant, a companion to the fellow monks, who listened to the Dhamma well, who learned the Dhamma well, who penetrated the Dhamma well, and who attained temporary liberation, he surpasses and excels the other person. For what reason? Because the Dhamma stream, because he loved the Dhamma, because he listened to the Dhamma and he tried to practice the Dhamma, the Dhamma stream carried him to betterment. Okay? But who can know this difference except the Tathagata? Therefore, Ananda, do not be judgmental regarding people. Do not pass judgment on people. Those who pass judgment on people, they harm other people's qualities. Okay? Ananda, I alone or one like me may pass judgment on people. Okay, so this is the teachers. Either I will pass a judgment or a person like me, that is another Buddha, is the only person who's qualified to judge a person. Okay, so that's the first, those are the first two people. And then the Supreme Buddha goes on to explain this further. Okay, the Supreme Buddha teaches the next two people are Ananda, there's one person who gets angry a lot. Okay, so if you say even a little thing, that person gets angry quickly. Okay, there's a person who gets angry a lot, and he's also very egoistic. He's so proud of himself. His pride is very high. He thinks so highly of himself. He boasts about himself. Okay, and from time to time, he is very greedy. Greed also rises in him. So all of these are defilements to the mind. Anger, egoisticness, and greed. Okay. So there are two people like this. Both of them they get angry a lot. They get angry often. They are very conceited. That means conceit means very egoistic. They think so highly about themselves, boast about themselves. And from time to time, they feel greed. That means they're very greedy. They want sometimes they desire things that belongs to others. Okay, they don't like to give. So both of them are from the outside. This is how both of them look. Okay. However, one person he has not listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. He has not learned the Dhamma. He doesn't have a good Dhamma knowledge. And he doesn't have a good understanding, a clear view of the Dhamma. And he doesn't attain temporal liberation. With the breakup of the body after death, he heads for deterioration and not for distinction. Okay. Then Ananda, there's another person. That person also gets angry. That person also is very egoistic. And that person is also very greedy. Okay. However, although he gets angry often, although he is very egoistic, although he is very greedy from time to time, this person listens to the Dhamma. Okay. He listens to the Dhamma and he has a good Dhamma knowledge. And he also has a good understanding of the Dhamma. And he also attains a temporary liberation. Right? So while he is listening to the Dhamma, he gains that rapture, he gains that joy. Okay. But once he goes back home, he's angry. Okay. However, because he has listened to the Dhamma, he knows that anger is not a good thing. Right? But the other person, he gets angry, he's conceited, but because he has not learned and listened to the Dhamma properly and he has not understood the Dhamma properly, he doesn't have this proper knowledge. Okay. So the second person, he has listened to the Dhamma and he knows that anger is a bad thing. He knows being proud of yourself, being conceited is a bad thing, and he knows greed is a bad thing. Okay. Although he has these defilements, because he knows these defilements will lead him to a bad rebirth, within him, he has the desire, he has the urge to abandon them. So he's fighting within him, trying to get rid of these things. Now, this is a good example of most people who listen to the Dhamma. Right? You get angry, you feel greedy, you feel conceited, right? But you know that these are bad qualities. How do you know? By listening to the Dhamma. You know that these are defilements to the mind. They impures the mind. And if a person dies with impure mind, that person will be born in a bad destination. So therefore, within that person, he has that urge, desire to get rid of these defilements. So he's making an effort to a certain extent to get rid of it. So the story with the teachers, therefore, that person upon death, Okay, that person upon death will go higher compared to the other person who did not practice the Dhamma. Now, do you see the difference? So from the outside, you can't see any difference between these two. Right? They both get angry. They both yell at others. They are so proud of themselves, conceited, and they're very greedy. However, from the inside, there is a difference. And that difference is only seen by a Tathagata, how that person's inner faculties are developing. Because from the moment a person develops a pleasant mind about the Supreme Buddha teaches, these 5 faculties are established within him, at least minimally. Okay, so once a person forms a pleasant mind about the Buddha, he has Shraddha. Okay, he has Shraddha, he has Virya, he makes an effort to do good things and abandon bad things, and he tries to develop mindfulness. Okay, and he tries to develop a concentrated mind. He tries to calm himself. Right. For example, when you listen to the Dhamma, sometimes your mind is very calm. Right. Your mind is very calm. It's not restless. So that calmness, that of the mind, starts to develop from the very beginning itself. It's not a jhana level, but it's still there's a certain calmness, and then panya, wisdom. That person starts to form a pleasant mind about the Buddha because he understands the Dhamma to at least certain extent. So therefore, once a person forms a pleasant mind about the Buddha and has gone to refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, these 5 faculties are established within that person, at least minimally. So from that moment on, that person has to develop it further. So listening to the Dhamma and practicing the Dhamma helps without you knowing these 5 faculties are developing within you. When you listen to the Dhamma, your confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha develops, and you make an effort to abandon bad things and develop good things, and you try to be mindful, and you try to calm your mind, and you try to develop wisdom. Okay, so only a Buddha can see these faculties growing from the outside. You can't see these things. So that's why the Supreme Buddha teaches, although from the outside they both seem angry, conceited, and greedy, from the inside, that person who has listened to the Dhamma and penetrated well by weave the Dhamma, that person goes higher compared to that person who has not developed those qualities. Okay. So those are the next 2 people. So now we have discussed 4 types of people. And then the Supreme Buddha teaches, Ananda, therefore, don't go to judge people. Okay? Don't go to judge people, because if you go to judge people, you're going to harm their inner qualities. Right? Because from the that's why even in the everyday language, people say, don't judge a book by the cover. Right? Because you don't know what is inside. You can't see what's inside. So the Supreme Buddha teaches, don't go to judge. Okay? Either I will judge or a person like me will judge. If a normal person goes to judge, that person is going to harm that other person's inner qualities. And then the Supreme Buddha teaches the next 2 people. That is, Ananda, suppose there's another person who gets angry a lot. And he's also conceited. So he gets angry. He gets angry often, and he's also conceited. That means he's very egoistic about himself. And from time to time, he just goes on rambling. That is, he just talks nonsense. Nonsense means meaningless things, okay? Things that are not true, things that are, he says things that are not appropriate to the time, to the occasion. So he just goes on rambling, just going on talking. Right? There are some people like that, right? Sometimes, there are some people that when you meet such a person, you try to avoid that person, because if you meet him, then you can't get away from him for like 1 hour. It just goes on talking, 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 right? So there are people like that. So from the outside, we see, oh my, this is a person who just rambles. Okay. However, the Supreme Buddha teaches of those two people who get angry, who are conceited, and who just goes on rambling, one person has not listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. Okay, so here, remember, this is not just mere listening. Okay, there may be many people listening to the Dhamma, but true listening means taking in what's taught, understanding the Dhamma and taking in the meaning and practicing it to your own life. That's what it means. Taking what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. Okay? So of those two people who rambles on, one person has not listened to the Dhamma and taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. He doesn't have a good Dhamma knowledge. And he doesn't have a clear understanding of the Dhamma. And he does not attain temporary liberation. What is temporary liberation? That liberation that you get, that happiness, that joy, that rapture that you get when you're practicing the Dhamma, when you're listening to the Dhamma. Okay? However, the other person who rambles on, he listens to the Dhamma. And he has taken what needs to be taken from the Dhamma. So he knows, although he goes on rambling and saying empty words that are meaningless words, he knows that it's not a good thing. Okay, he knows this is something I should control. There are many people like this. When they go into a crowd, they can't stop themselves from talking, but inside of them, they want to stop it. Okay, they want to control themselves, but they can't. So because of listening to the Dhamma, they know that speech is something that should be controlled. You should not ramble on. You should not say empty words. You should say meaningful words that are true, that are that are worthy of being retained. He knows all of these things, but he just can't control it. Okay, so he has listened to the Dhamma, he has retained the Dhamma, and he has a clear understanding of the Dhamma. And he also attains temporary liberation. That is from time to time, when he's listening to Dhamma, his mind is very calm. Okay, when he's listening to Dhamma, he's very calm, he's very quiet, he's very peaceful. The moment he comes out from the Dhamma talk, again he starts to talk. Okay, but while listening to Dhamma, he gains that temporary liberation. So the Supreme Buddha teaches, therefore, when this person dies, he goes higher. Whereas when the other person who has not practiced the Dhamma dies, he goes lower. Okay, so from the outside, they all seem the same. They get angry, they are conceited, they're just talkers. However, upon death, they don't go to the same destination. One person goes higher, one person goes lower. So this is what the teaches Ananda. So those who are judgmental, like that Upasika, right? What's her name? Migasala. Like that Upasika who are judgmental might think, how is it from the outside? They seem to be the same. So how is it that one person became superior and the other person became inferior, right? Ananda, that judgment will only lead to harm and suffering for a long time. Now, this is the danger of judging others. When we judge others without truly knowing the reality, the Supreme Buddha teaches that can harm us. Right? Because when we judge others, we say words about them, right? We tell others about them. This person is like this person is like this, right? So maybe inside that person is different, that person has developed faculties. So when we say words like that towards a person who's good within, then we collect lots of demerit. Right? So that's why some of the teachers don't go to judge people by just simply looking from the outside. Like there are some people who says, if a person who listens to the Dhamma a lot, if a person who goes to the monastery a lot, if that person gets angry, they make fun of that person saying, oh, she goes to the monastery for no point, right? She always listens to the Dhamma, but a little thing is enough for her to get angry. So what are those? They're judgments. But we don't know how inner faculties are developing within that person, right? So these are the dangers. So that's why if this is a very good advice that we should take from our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, not to judge others. Because this judging others we are so used to this. It's like it's within us, it's embedded within us to judge others. So, if once a person listens to this Dhamma talk, we should at least start to stop ourselves from judging others by remembering this advice of the Supreme Buddha. Because the Supreme Buddha himself teaches this will harm us and lead to suffering for a long time. Okay. So in this way, the Supreme Buddha teaches, Ananda, therefore, don't be judgmental regarding people. Do not pass judgment on people. Those who pass judgment on people harm the inner qualities of others. Either I will judge or make a judgment on others, or another person like me will judge. Because only a Buddha has the ability to see the inner self of another person. Okay. And again, the Supreme Buddha teaches Ananda, who indeed is the female lay follower Migasala, a foolish, incompetent woman with an immature intellect, and who is the Tathagata who has the ability to see the inner faculties of a person. And the Supreme Buddha teaches Ananda. At the end of this sutta, the Supreme Buddha teaches the reason why Isidatta and Purana, why the Supreme Buddha declared that Isidatta and Purana, both of them were reborn in the same place. Okay, so now what was Migasala's criticism? That she says my father was a celibate disciple, and therefore he should be reborn in a higher place than my uncle, who was not a celibate person. So that's her argument. Okay, that's a criticism. So she's criticizing the fact that the Supreme Buddha declared that both of them were reborn in the same place, although they were different. So now our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, teaches the reason. The Supreme Buddha teaches Ananda, if Isidatta had the same kind of virtuousness as Purana. Now, Purana, he led a celibate life. Okay. If Isidatta had the same kind of virtuous behavior as Purana, then Purana could not even know where Isidatta would be born, because he would be born much higher. He would be born in a much higher world. And Ananda, if Purana had the same level of wisdom as Isidatta, Isidatta could not even find where Purana would be reborn. So now what does this mean? Although Purana was high in his virtue, his wisdom was lower. So from the 5 faculties, his virtuousness his virtuousness was high, but his wisdom was lower. Okay. However, Isidatta's wisdom was much higher than Purana, but his virtue was lower. So because each of them had a weakness in their inner faculties, in their inner qualities, that is the reason that they were reborn in the same place. And from the outside, we only see their virtuousness, we don't see their wisdom, right? But a Tathagata sees the wisdom. The Tathagata sees how their faculties have been developed. Okay, so the Survey teaches that is the reason they were reborn in the same place. If one of them had higher wisdom or if one of them had higher virtue, then they would be reborn in a place where the other person who will not even be able to find where the other person is reborn. Right? So through this we can see that's what the Survey teaches. You know, when we develop these faculties, we should try to equal these faculties. If a person has high confidence, then that if that person has lower effort, you should try to develop your effort. If a person has high effort but he has lower wisdom, you should try to develop your wisdom. So you should try to identify these inner faculties within you and try to develop them and balance them. And if you have the if you balance them, just remember the teachers, then your inner faculties will grow quickly and you will be able to quickly develop your Dharma path. Okay. So that is the end of this sutta. So may this beautiful sutta help all of us to realize the importance of listening to the Dhamma and understanding the Dhamma and practicing the Dhamma. And may this beautiful sutta help all of us to not judge others. And may this beautiful sutta help all of us to develop our inner faculties and realize the Four Noble Truths and find real happiness in this Gautam Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.